What's going on? Welcome back to the Monster Bass channel. I'm Jeff with the Aggressively Average Anglers, and I'm here to talk to you guys about some alternative rigging options for your bladed jigs, your chatterbaits, your vibrating jigs, whatever you want to call them. These things right here, the jig head with the little blade on top. I'll show you a couple of my favorite bladed jigs that I like to use all the time, and more importantly, the trailers that you could be using this season. So maybe you're on open water right now, maybe you're waiting for the ice to melt, kind of like I am here up in Michigan and the Midwest. We're at that point where we're a week or 2 weeks away from open water, so I'm getting prepped for spring fishing. So before we get to all these trailers, first things first, if you like content like this, if you're looking to expand your tackle box and learn how to use more fishing rigs and catch more fish, as well as get a chance at your new PB, then I'd consider subscribing to the Monster Bass channel. And if you would so kindly, pop on over to my channel, the Aggressively Average Anglers, where me and my friend Paul keep learning new stuff. So we are talking to the smartest people in the industry and people who know a lot more than we do so that we can become better anglers. If that sounds like something you want to do, consider subscribing to our channel. And also there's always live content that you guys can check out right here on Monster Bass. Rick goes live every Thursday and we go live every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern over on our channel. So love to see you there and talk to you in chat. And today I'd love to show you some killer trailers for your bladed jigs. Let's get to it. So you might have your standard jig trailers that you like to throw on your bladed jigs, which would include some of my favorites like Big Bite Bait's Kamikaze Swim-Ons, where it's more of kind of like a fluke style, but this vertical inline tail, which helps me put the bladed jig where I want it in the water column and gives me some added action. Paddle tails, you're gonna be up a bit higher. Maybe you throw a craw pattern on there. That's something kind of outside the box. We're going further outside the box today. And you can rig that craw either vertical inline or horizontal. There's a lot of things you can do. Some of my other favorite standard trailers that I'll use would be the ZMan Razor Shads. You got the Yamamoto Zaccos. You've got the new Berkley Power Bait option as well. These are all like amazing options. Today we're talking about the alternatives, things that are gonna have some crazier action, maybe a bigger profile, and ideally draw that reaction spring bite. I'm gonna start off the top with a secret sauce jig that I found last year that caught me an innumerable amount of bass, and you guys are gonna like this too. First of all, it starts off with the ChatterBait Mini Max coming from ZMan. This is a killer miniaturized chatterbait that comes with upgraded components. So you still get your snap rings. Same thing you're gonna see on the stealth blades as well as the jackhammer. Good components up here, nice jig head. I've actually retied this skirt a few times because I ended up getting mine torn off, but it is hand tied when you first get it. And the trailer on this one, you guys are gonna like. So what you do is you actually take a finesse TRD, also from ZMan, or any sort of 3-inch stick bait. So you can cut down a stick bait, you can grab one that's intended for a Ned rig. Basically, you just need a short worm with a flat end to it. And on that flat end, what you're gonna do is you're gonna implant a little blade. Now, if you're using regular plastics, you can use a screw lock blade that they make, or you can use these ZMan TRD spins. These come with little barbs on the wire here, and then you just stick it right into the end of your worm. And what this does is it adds a little extra flash to the end. These can be found in willow blades and Colorado blades and come in gold or silver. And then you could, of course, paint the blade if you wanted to add a different effect. I'm going for the shiny, flashy effect. So gold or silver are perfect for this. And I do like gold. Early on in the spring, we tend to get, less bright blue sky conditions. We're getting more like cloudy skies, and that's where gold seems to do the best for me. And in this case, I'm pairing it with a gold chatterbait blade. For added effect, you can go with a silver blade here, gold blade here, alternate, whatever you want to do. There's a lot of different ways to mix and match this thing, as well as different colors that you could go with for your Mini Max. For this, I went with the chartreuse and white, and then we've got one of my favorite colors, finesse TRD, the copper truce right there. Cool thing about this is that you're getting that double flash from up here and down here, and then of course you're getting your bladed jig standard, that crazy action and that loud blade up front here. And the goal with spring fishing is I'm looking for those reaction strikes. This thing is killer in the spring and fall. I caught an insane amount of fish on this last year. Highly recommend it. And we like to call it the Chatter Turd. So next up, I've got one that came in our February box. We've got the Strike King Thunder Cricket. Comes in a bunch of different colors. You may have black and blue, green pumpkin, white, and plenty of other ones that you can choose from. In this case, we've got one of my favorites. It's like this glacier white color. There's white and blue to it with the whites and grays and blues in the skirt. Again, this is about alternate rigs for your bladed jigs. I'm not talking your paddle tails, your flukes, your, Yamamoto Zaccos, all that stuff, kamikaze swim-ons. Those are all great. We're talking creature baits here. So what did we do with this one? We threw on a creature bait. This creature bait in particular comes from a company called Slick Baitco, kind of a smaller bait company doing amazing things. They run auctions every single week, and a lot of their proceeds go towards charities. And we found them on my channel, The Aggressively Average Anglers, because of their connection to autism awareness. So this was amazing, kind of serendipitous experience. We had them on our podcast. They've helped us raise money in the past for autism awareness. We've put some efforts into what they do. And of course, their auctions every single week are going on. So go check out Slick Baitco, you guys, and show some support for a company doing amazing things. And not only that, they're also making some pretty amazing baits. So this one here is called the JB Crawls, and it's a nice, unique creature bait where you got like this ribbed body for added action throughout. You get the big flaps right here, and then you get the little curly tails off the end for that added action. This is not something you would typically throw or see even on a bladed jig, but I'm telling you, this will kill it for you guys. It's gonna have all this extra action off the back, and it's gonna be something different and unique that the fish in the waters you're fishing haven't seen before. Especially if you fish pressured waters, this is a great idea, and you're getting that big profile. So we're trying to attract those big, fat spring bass. As they're feeding up, they might be keying in on these bigger baits. That's why we like to throw swim baits and glide baits this time of year, and I highly recommend you do as well. But I also love fishing the bladed jig. The chatterbaits just kill it for me, especially up here in the Midwest, and this is something I fully intend on throwing. This is going in my day box. Next up, we got another solid spring pattern, that Fire Craw. So we're throwing lots of reds and oranges, something that really pops in the spring and in the fall, and something that it seems our fish really key in on, right? So we're going with that Fire Craw pattern. And on top of that, let's add some extra crazy action by throwing a worm on there. Not just any worm, a curly tail worm. This one also comes from Slick Baitco. It's a 7-inch curly tail worm, and that curly tail there, and I've got it pointed up in this direction. You can kind of, switch around, do whatever you want with it. I just happen to end up going with it this direction on my rigging. This is going to give you a ton of finessey action off the back of this. Anytime you run a worm off the back of a jig, which maybe you haven't tried before, or off the back of a bladed jig, something you're swimming and doing maybe a faster retrieve with, you're gonna get a ton of action because that whole tail section is hanging off the back. That's all kicking. That's all moving around. Add a curly tail to it and you get even more action on top of that. I think this red craw combo is going to kill it, and you add that curly tail. I'm looking forward to fishing that one. Staying with the worms and going with a natural color, we've got one of my favorite all-time colors from ZMan, which is Brett's Gill on the ZMan Jackhammer. So ZMan Jackhammer and Brett's Gill is a gold blade up top that you can see there. A nice subtle kind of like more darker natural color for bluegill pattern is just a hint of orange there, lots of green pumpkin throughout and different hues of green, and then a little brown on your jig head. Just all around great looking setup, great color. And then you throw on for the trailer here a Strike King Fat Baby Finesse, another one that I've picked up from Monster Bass boxes in the past, but also like a worm, a trick worm specifically, that I would be grabbing off of the shelf of your local tackle shop or your Bass Pro Shop or whatever, right? That's a go-to worm for many, many people. So that Fat Baby Finesse, it's got that, bulbous tail end here, and these actually have a little pocket on the back, which help give it some added action when rigged on a shaky head or Texas rig or even Carolina rig. In this case, again, you're getting the extended end here of that worm, giving you that kicking action off the back, and then this tail is gonna be catching water and moving a lot too. You can see there's gonna be a lot of action with something like this. Again, something outside the box, maybe you haven't thrown before, definitely something these bass have not seen before, and something most likely to get that reaction strike. Again, it's kind of like stepping outside your comfort zone. However, sometimes when we do that, we get the best bites and we get that PB catch. This is something that may surprise you, much like the Chatter Turd did for me last year. I looked at it, I was like, this is dumb, there's no way this is gonna work. and it was just amazing. So you never know what you're gonna get. This is something I would definitely recommend trying. For my last two rigs, we're gonna get a little bit weird here, so bear with me. The first one I wanna show you guys is a little spin on your black and blue setup. With a creature, but it's not the creature you'd expect. It's actually called the Flutter Nymph from Fish Lab, and it's a dragonfly style bait. So check this out. We've got our black and blue jig, the Thunder Cricket right here, and down below that, a little straight tail, right? But if you move the skirt, you can see all these wings here. So this is the Flutter Nymph. Comes with this very thin plastic, coming down to a nice little flange on the end there, which is gonna have added movement to that plastic. So where the skirt's kind of just streaming behind, these little kicky ends here are gonna move a bit more. So it gives me some added action on 4 points of contact there. And then the straight tail end, again, doing what the worm does, right? Giving a nice little subtle movement back and forth. Now, obviously this is an odd looking setup, but consider this, throw some creature baits that are absurd onto your bladed jig. In this case, a dragonfly. Why not? It's gonna have the added action. I mean, you could throw a bladed jig with no trailer and catch fish. So messing around with different things like this gives it different, albeit sometimes subtle, action changes to it that could be that trick that get these bass to key in on it. I'm digging this one. I know it's probably the weirdest one I'm gonna show you today, but I promise you it's gonna work, and I'm definitely fishing it. And finally, if you wanna go with a real loud thump, if you haven't tried these before, check out the ZMan Big Blade series. So the Big Blade ChatterBait, or the BBC from ZMan, is a fantastic bladed jig. It does come with a slightly longer, like more pronounced skirt, usually brighter colors, and a big old blade, as you can see right up top there, with premium components, so you're still getting your snap ring, all that cool stuff. I love these jigs, something I picked up just last year for the first time and started fishing. It gives you a real hard thump, real hard knocking action. They're really cool, and whatever trailer you put on it is gonna move a lot more than your standard bladed jigs do. Right? So what did I choose for this? We went real crazy with another bait that actually came in a Monster Bass box previously. This is the Big Bite Baits BFE, so you probably recognize this tail. I happen to have cut this one already. You definitely don't have to do that, but it's gonna give me a little added kind of kicking action to it. This is also something where you could consider trimming the skirt a little bit, giving it some different appearance as well, but this bait is typically like a punching, flipping bait. It's big and bulky. It's got a ton of appendages on it, even these little antennae coming off the end. That's kind of cool. So you're gonna get a lot of that nice action there. It's kind of a chunkier bait, so it's not gonna be like kicking. It's not gonna change your position in the water column. In fact, it'll probably swim maybe a little bit deeper, kind of like an inline trailer bait would, but it's just cool. That added flipper back there, I think it's gonna add some really cool action to this. I think the fish are gonna like it. Again, I'm just thinking outside the box, and this is really what this video is about. What could you grab out of your plastics options as a trailer that maybe you haven't thrown before? So if you're not having any luck on the standard issue stuff, try something different. Creature baits, craws on bladed jigs, they actually work really, really well. This ain't no secret. Now, these combos might be something new that you haven't seen before. However, throwing creature baits on bladed jigs is nothing really new. It's something that has worked for a long time and that a lot of people do. So if you haven't tried it, definitely consider doing that. Here's a last look at that Big Blade ChatterBait with the BFE. So there you go, a bunch of different options that you guys should be considering this spring and actually all year round. I mean, the bladed jig and spinner baits are just things that I'm always keeping on board the boat. Always consider throwing them and pretty much always catch fish on them. So if you're not continuously throwing that chatterbait, you should definitely consider it and really messing around with your trailer options. There's a lot of fantastic options out there. Go from your standards, your paddle tail and your fluke style stuff to your inline tail stuff to this kind of stuff behind me here and your craws. Mix it up and you might just be surprised by the results. Thanks so much for watching, you guys. Again, consider subscribing to the Monster Bass channel and hopping over to Aggressively Average Anglers to give us a subscribe as well. We really appreciate you guys considering that. And then come over to one of our lives. Monster Bass live every Thursday. We're live every Wednesday. You can catch them both and you're gonna meet some cool guests and learn a lot of stuff along the way. Again, thank you so much for watching and we'll catch you guys on the next video.